Hey, welcome to Gen X Medic. I decided it's time to make a video. It's been a while. And we're going to talk about something that I actually have always talked about a lot. And this one's going out to my generation, your older medics. Recently, I've had several of my coworkers ask me to go for some stuff. And it took me a long time to understand exactly what they were doing. And when they did, I was flustered. I was flattered. At work, I don't have work wives, don't have any of that. I've got work kids. I didn't know how important that was to them. I mean, it's important to me because let's be honest, those of us in EMS, what we leave behind us is always going to be our legacy. I want to give us shout outs to Marshall and Brad, Gary, Donna, God rest your soul, Tracy. These are the people that I'm mentioning by name, not using their last name. I don't want to dox anybody. They took time to mentor me, help me learn. I hope I pass that around along. Apparently, I've done something right. God forbid it happens. I hope I don't screw it up too bad, to be honest. But I'm not mentioning any of the younger people by name. You know who you are. I mean, I'd love to have you on sometime to talk. I've been thinking about the nature of relationships, been thinking about the nature of friendship. You know, I've been a paramedic, like I said, for 22 years now. Had my registry for 20. I took a different path back when I started. The normal path was you took a state test, and then if you wanted other options, you took your registry where I was at. I did that. The other day, I got my 20-year cert from the registry. "26 years on an ambulance." It's a long time, folks. I see some of the EMS creators out there. Some of them are a little ridiculous. Some of them like telling war stories. Heck, I like telling war stories. I don't like telling war stories where I look like I'm awesome because, I mean, let's be honest. There's not a lot to teach, and look how great I am. I know my love my wife. She's been there by my side for 22 years, but started dating the week before I got my paramedic, believe it or not. I've not always been a perfect husband, not been a perfect dad. I tried, did the best I could. I've always tried to help people. And it's always been fun to watch people learn. Tell you, had a couple of them I've helped pull some amazing things in the last few weeks. I mean, it's gratifying. You know, I said a long time ago, you in a blog I wrote back when I did that whole blogging thing instead of this, how we stand on the shoulders of giants. And best thing we can do, honestly, is try to be the people that the next generation stands on their shoulders. Recently, I had a coworker having that feeling that despite everything he did, and from what I can tell, he did everything right. And that first patient that didn't make it despite all those efforts. And it's hard. I mean, every paramedic knows how hard it is. You know, I try to warn my students, understand, you can kill someone by protocol. That doesn't mean you did something wrong. It just means that sometimes what's supposed to work didn't. It's hard to understand. Are your protocols, your guidelines there to give you guidance on how to take care of somebody? When it doesn't work, I mean, that's weird. That's not what you're supposed to be dealing with. I've seen them deal with some just awful calls that would tear anybody down. Some days I just walked in the office, it's the right time to talk to them. Sometimes people let me know to get a hold of people. It's tough. But I think back to my dad. I've talked about him on here before. Not a perfect man, but he was always there for me, even when we've been fighting. All that stuff you go through with your parents. Because you never agree with them. And heck, when you're a kid, you know everything. You figured it all out. You've got more knowledge than they do. You don't figure out until you get older that they learned a few things along the way that you hadn't, that you only learn by experience. Then you try to pass that along. Maybe you do a little better than they did. Maybe you figured out a better way to talk about it. But part of it's going to be that fact that, you know, every successive generation has more knowledge at their hands. And that's a great thing. What you can provide as an elder, as someone who's been doing this a long time, is the wisdom of how to apply that knowledge. We're better off than we were when I started. Dr. Peter Antevy talks about codes that never end. You know those. You worked them. You did everything you could. Things didn't go right. But you never got the closure. You never got to learn what went wrong, or if anything. Because a lot of times nothing went wrong. It's just the reality of life. I mean, you go out there, you do everything you can, things start going south. Sometimes you're so far behind the eight ball, you had no chance. Sometimes you've got a patient that's just so sick that whatever you do, to fix them is going to make something else worse. I mean, they're just in that bad of shape. Sometimes what works on one person won't work on another, right? So how do you help them? How do you got to realize you got to put them first. It's just like anything else. You got to realize, there's that old Conway Twitty song, "That's My Job." Experienced medics, male, female, your work dads, your work moms, you know, you're going to get come to for everything from work advice to life advice to just how do I deal with this? And sometimes you're going to be wrong, because the reality is we're all different. I had a good friend, younger lady. Her and her husband are good friends of mine, and they're awesome people, really, really awesome. They were working together and had a call that anyone would dread. Had another one, like knew they were on this call, got a hold of me. So they wound up in my house. Me and my wife sitting there talking to them, helping her walk through and realize that she didn't do anything wrong. She did everything that I would have done, that anyone in that situation would have done. It was awful. You know, part of this video I've been planning on making for a while. Lost a lot of old coworkers, some through illness. One of them I didn't even know was sick. I wish I had. I'd got back to go check on her. Another one, his demons won, and we all have them. You've heard me talk about depression, self-deletion, all that stuff before if you've been watching this channel. It ain't easy. Also, ain't easy learning to talk to a camera. You got to pull yourself out there. I'm not perfect. And I know I'm getting emotional because I can hear my accent. And when I can hear my accent, I know it's getting pretty thick. I see online, I see people that have what I consider poor attitudes. I see people talking about how in the end, it's just a job. That you know, you should be mad. I've seen people mad because they get held over on calls. I've seen people mad that they're not getting everything they want. To be fair, I've also seen people say, if you'll do this, we'll do that. And the company come through and then they don't. And to me, that's setting yourself up for failure. Because if you say you're going to do something and then they come through and you don't come through, it's kind of hard to argue for the next thing. No agency, no company that provides EMS can survive with other people. And no people who want to really provide EMS can do it without a company or an agency. It's this weird codependent thing. So when we're talking about these things, and you're talking about mentorship, and you're talking about being a person that younger people trust, you need to tell them the truth. Tell them. Tell them some days the best thing you can do is realize it's going to be horrible, but you're going to be there for them. Companies need to provide better closure. We need to provide better support. I was talking to a EMT last night. She used to be a paramedic. She decided it was too much for her at that point in her career. She'd been doing it for a long time. She stepped back to an EMT role, decided she'd be a better support role. We're talking about how it used to be and good and bad. There are things we've lost. There are really things that we've lost in this profession. I can remember bad situations in a small area I worked. You had rival companies, you know, and those rival companies competed right up into the point it got bad. And then everything got put aside. It didn't matter who you worked for. You know, there was times that you just jump on, as soon as the truck got available, folks would just jump on it. Because half the people were technically on the other company's roster, because even when they quit, they never took them off because you knew they were coming back. So solved the problem. You didn't have to go through all the paperwork. It solved issues, right? And when things went south, it didn't care. You didn't care what said on the side of the truck. You showed up. Company I worked for, part of our disaster plan was actually incorporating former employees, because even people who gave their certs would show up. Because, yeah, I mean, this is how I make my living. No, and I make a pretty good living at it. You know, I hope that I get enough followers to get this monetized so I can justify doing more videos and live streams. And I'd love it. I'd love to be able to have a chat up, interacting with chat, answering questions. Just be awesome. Or, but I'm paramedic. I mean, a friend of mine came to me with a job opportunity that I was like, that's tempting, but I just couldn't do it. My wife, if I decided to do it, she'd support me 110%. The money was there. I've got the experience for it, but it's not what I want. I want to be out there helping people. I want to be out there building the next generation of EMTs, paramedics, and leaders. You know, there's not enough money in the world to compensate you for when you become an FTO or a supervisor, at least not if you're a good one. Because people talk about not taking your job home. People talk about what you can't not do that in these positions. You're a preceptor, you're a FTO, you're a supervisor, and if you're a leader, you don't stop leading when you clock out. When you're a leader, stuff's going to keep you up at night. You're going to constantly wonder, how do I make things better? How do I help these folks? And it's, you know, you the truth is, there is not a single person who cares about people, that cares about those that come after them and those that depend on them, that leave it at the office. Here's here's the really scary thing. The people that you work with, they know. No agency can give you leadership. They can give you a role. They can't give you leadership. They can't make you a mentor because you get a title. You earn it. Means you're going to pick up that, you're going to get that message at 2 o'clock in the morning. If you're awake, you're going to answer them. You're going to answer them because it's not about money. It's not about what it says on the side of your truck or your patch on your shoulder. It's about that person that's on the other line. You know, it's about the fact that they just worked their first baby code and it went south despite being given every tool in the world. It went south because, let's be honest, a lot of times you're behind the eight ball. Maybe that kid was already gone, but it's a baby. It's, you picked up someone you care about on the worst day of their life. Because even in urban settings, people. Sometimes you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. I took care of family members. With people who you're almost family with. I mean, that's just the reality of this tough job. So why do you answer the phone? Why do you do all these things? That's your job. That's the job that you do when you care about people. You don't wake up and say, I'm better than you. You don't wake up and say, hey, I'm you try to help them. You can't fix it for them, but maybe you can give them the tools to fix it themselves. I remember a former partner of mine calling me because she needed help on a vent. By the way, that individual's not a flight medic, critical care certified. She's pretty successful in her career. Couldn't get a hold of anybody. She knew I could operate it. I walked her through it on the phone. I am sitting on my couch, but I knew it was important. You know, this individual wasn't going to call me on my time off for no reason. She needed help. So Don't be afraid to be that mentor. Don't be afraid to be that work dad, that person who, they call when, hey, I've got problem, is this a decent boyfriend or girlfriend for me? We're having issues. Can you help me through it? Yeah, you're going to get those calls. I mean, especially if it's a partner, if it's someone who you work with for a long time, they'll trust you more than anybody because yeah, she'll walk through the valley of the shadow of death and all that. They're right there with you through the whole thing. They've seen you at your best and worst, and they know they can trust you. If you're a good partner, they're going to trust you. They're going to go to heck and back for you because they know you'll do that for them. I'll say this. You may upset somebody sometime. That's going to happen. But they'll remember if you tell them the truth. They'll forgive you if you hurt their feelings a little bit. If you're just being honest, you're not being cruel. Tell those kids they're important. Let them know they are a future of this job. Help them learn. Build them up. Let them know that you screwed up. Let them know you know how it feels. I mean, let's be honest. Kids, new people coming into EMS. Don't be afraid to listen to them. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to be wrong. They're going to help you. If they're decent, they're going to help you. Sometimes being wrong helps you learn. Actually, usually it does. Some of the best learning I've ever seen by any of my students or partners was when they had the wrong idea and we were able to talk about it and show them where their thinking was right, where their thinking was wrong. Because usually it's not bad thinking, it's just they need to learn how to apply it a little different. Especially paramedic students, man, they know everything and nothing. If a paramedic student never questions you on a call, you start to worry about them. You start to worry about them because they're just trying to go through the motions. If you're a good partner, you're going to be encouraging them to think. You're going to be encouraging them to get those problem solving skills while they're still safe to do it. Just keep it respectful. In the end, this stuff matters. It's a really long video for me. YouTube's probably going to hate it, but when you start talking from your feelings and your knowledge and the things that matter, sometimes you get a little wordy. To the folks that inspired me to make this video, to the old medics who helped me learn, Rest in peace, Donna. Rest in peace, Heather. For those who are still around. Brad, Marshall, Gary. Thank you. Thank you for everything you did for me. To the kids who, like I said, you're young and I'm not naming your names, that's up to you. Thank you for showing this old medic that he matters. That maybe something he does is right. It's Gen X Medic signing off.